So for the people who are joining me on Instagram, thank you for joining us. You know that today we have a very special event. We're going to be doing a talk with the program manager and the executive director and our new member, Mr. Devin Atkins. So we're going to be doing what to the American slave is the 4th of July. So it's going to be talking about Frederick Douglass, the legacy of slavery, what we're really celebrating on the 4th of July. So we're going to have a lot of interesting conversation today. Hi, Ms. Cheryl B. Thank you for joining. I'm going to be going back and forth between the Zoom panel and the Instagram live. So, Mr. Barber, I'm still waiting for the request to join in. Hi, Jocelyn. Thank you for joining. Go to the top of when you came in. It should be like a request to join in or ask to. There we go. All right.
Okay. So I don't know, is that the Zoom?
Yeah, it's probably the mic, but we'll figure that out right now.
Okay. So we have a. Welcome. Just give me one moment. I'm still trying to work on this streaming. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. We're working out a couple of technical difficulties. Trying to make sure we're not duplicating audio. So give me 1 second. Seems as though okay. 1 second to try to get the Facebook Live going.
All right, and for those who are joining us in right now, I just want to say we are doing a talk today which is called What to the American Slave is the 4th of July. We're going to be talking about Frederick Douglass. We're going to be talking about the legacy of the 4th of July. We're going to talk about what we're really celebrating. And we're going to have the executive director with us, the program manager. We're going to have Mr. Devin Atkins join us. And it's going to be a really good conversation today. I'm very excited to have everyone joining in.
Okay, we just got a few more. We almost going live on our Facebook, just in case anybody wants to watch that can't join. I don't think we've received any requests to come into the webinar for anybody that may want to appear on the webinar side of it. It's still going through its process. Okay, it's preparing to do a live stream on our Facebook, the Black Archives History and Research Foundation's site. So we are just, computers sometimes work kind of weirdly on things, and it's still with the same not responding. So we may not be able to do the live. What is going on? Okay, so we're going to move forward with this. I don't know if you see that we have staff that has joined us from Kamila Pritchett. And they're on the screen behind us if you're not in the webinar. But if you are in the webinar, you're able to see those persons that are on board. And Lewis and I, we are live on Instagram. You're seeing two visions of Lewis.
You get my side profile there too.
Side profile, right, Lewis? I don't know if Pritchett, if you want to unmute Pritchett so that it'll switch over, because it's going to pick up Lewis because he's the talker. But I think it's set automatically to go to speaker view. Let's do that.
There we go.
Okay. All right, that looks a little bit better. Participants, okay. You're saying we have attendees, 2 in attendance, Miami-Dade NAACP, Jocelyn Hurtado. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started. I hope that I don't know, Chris, are we live on Facebook? Someone from staff can check to make sure that we are live on Facebook. We're going to get started. Welcome to everybody that's on board. So we're doing a general introduction. We wanted to talk about this. We're inspired. This will make my second round of interviews today. But I thought it would be a great time to talk about this thing, about being Black in America. And once what we heard, what I saw, what somebody was talking about was a speech that that Frederick Douglass made during the Independence Declaration of Independence signing, and in his speech he said, "What to an American slave is your 4th of July." So we just want to give some context. Louis, you can start us out, and we're just going to discuss different topics. If anybody have any suggestions or anybody have any comments, please comment for us. And are you have any questions? Make a question, we'll address those questions. So it's very organic. So at this time, Louis, take the floor, please. Set the stage for us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this speech, which is given the title "What to the American Slave is the 4th of July," was given on July 5th of 1852. So I'm going to read to you the excerpt where he says this, and I kind of hope that sets the stage for everything. So what to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty, an unholy license, your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, a hollow mockery, your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast. Fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour.
Okay, that's interesting. What year was that?
That was in 1852 that he gave the speech.
Louis, I believe you may be muted on the webinar. I don't know if anybody can hear. Can y'all hear Louis? Okay. So
I think it should fix the problem.
You think we got it? Okay.
All right.
So someone can tell me what year was that? What year was that speech?
That was given on July 5th, 1852.
And it was funny because Devon and I we were having a discussion when we was preparing for this topic, and I have to be frank about this thing. That speech in 1852 was filled with a lot of insults, some kind insults. The way that Frederick Douglass presented this in the context that it is, he said a lot of things in there. And I'm surprised that he left out of there with his life. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm laughing, but, not in a bad way, but I'm laughing in just that Frederick Douglass in 1852 literally did, he in many ways spoke his mind and spoke truth. And the people received it. They heard what he said, but did they really hear what he said? And this is organic, so anybody can kind of chime in as we discuss this topic, what is the 4th of July to a slave? Because Devin, share with me some of the things that we were talking about, or you were saying in your expertise of this conversation and researching these quotes.
Yes, definitely. I would say beginning of the speech I thought was very interesting. It seems Frederick Douglass started off by saying, disrespect for fathers, and it was, of course, the sarcasm, he said that, respecting fathers, patriotic, heroic, things of that nature. And then as he goes through the spiel, catching everyone's attention, everyone kind of feels though he's being honest with them. He then begins, insults, he begins, just explain what slaves had gone through, what African Americans have gone through, Cardinals at that time period, and he begins to just really express Black society and what we have in our country and why this is for us. So it was definitely incredible speech, and the rhetoric is definitely he has a lot of intelligence.
I agree, and actually, so I actually have a portion of the speech that I want to read because I think it kind of highlights what you guys are saying. So he is another excerpt from the same speech. Fellow citizens, pardon me, and also want to point out, like at this point, Black people were not citizens. You had a couple of freedmen, but still a majority of people were slaves. So when he calls them fellow citizens, I agree with you guys. It's a sort of insult. So, fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in the Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? It's a good question, because he's literally pointing out how this experiment in American freedom, what we celebrate the 4th of July, this releasing from the monarchical government of Britain, that independence was only granted to landowning white men. It was not given to poor white men. It was not given to women. It was not given to Black men or Black women. Any immigrants who were in the country, which is still very early. Most of the immigrants were Protestant settlers, but the rights that were conferred by the American Revolution were very limited in scope, especially in the beginning of the Revolution.
And I think it set the tone of this country, seeing what the people need and giving you way less to kind of placate you over until the next step. That same rhetoric, that same concept is, applicable today and what's going on. People are saying they want sweeping systematic changes, and we're getting Aunt Jemima, changing her name. These are things, just like having Frederick Douglass come and give that address, these are things to make them feel better, not to actually address the problem at large.
Why do you feel that? Okay, I'm sorry. We're still working out a lot of technical stuff. So you can hear me now? Okay. Why do you feel that? And I'm trying to get rid of this echo. We're trying to work this stuff out. Why do you feel that it's necessary, or we're repeating this level of history? It's ironic that we hear everything that is going on, George Floyd, and the other protests that happened, and the many other African Americans and people of Latin background have. Let's see, what was that? People of Latin background have faced this police brutality in what people say is white America. Why do you feel we're now again back in 1952, where Frederick Douglass made this speech at? Why do you feel we're back there?
So
anyway, that's open.
I actually. So this is another excerpt from another speech. So this was given at the 24th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1886. So this is just the ending of the speech. Frederick Douglass says this: "Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe. And I think that you, especially when we're talking about today in terms of what's going on with the riots or the rebellion, the uprising, really, let's call it what it is that you have this sentiment, and it's being shared broadly, because back in the day when Frederick Douglass was experiencing these things, they were being experienced by slaves. They were experienced by people who were considered property. But now you have this level, you have economic levels that are probably at their worst that they've been in many years. And there's this sort of solidarity is being felt across all peoples. So when you have these rebellions and uprisings, I believe it comes from that. It comes from this idea that he's talking about, where justice is being denied and poverty is enforced. And he was talking to slaves, but I think that same statement can be applied to many people nowadays.
Anyone else on that? Anyone else? So, good, okay. I can see you now. I just had to get another computer open so I don't have to keep looking back. So, so he talked about the liberties, right? I mean, in the speech that he made, it was so profound. What it seemed like he was preaching to the audience about the wrong that was being done, the alts against people of color. This is your holiday. This is your jubilation. This is your celebration. In one context, if I can quote just out of it, I don't know, Devin, if you have it, where he spoke about them celebrating and drinking and being excited about independence. But he said there's a difference, independence for those that are rich and then those poor blacks. Where the rich is inheriting justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence that they got from their forefathers, that you guys are able to share in this wealth, but I can't share in this wealth, you know. And he go on further to say, the sunlight that brought light and the healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. So he has this, when you kind of think about it, Lady Liberty, that's supposed to be equal justice, and you just see he's compounding. Liberty arms are really going in two different directions as it relates to people of color and white people. How do we keep this from happening? What is the?
I just wanted to back to what you said about how, you know, after this speech from 1852, how we're still having these struggles. And it was making me think about, there's a quote from Malcolm X that says that, you know, no one can give you freedom. Freedom is something that you have to take. And so the United States gained freedom through war. You know, if somebody gives you something, you get what they give you. And it will be just enough for them to say they did something, and it's never going to meet all of your needs. There has never been a time where there has been such a collective uprising to where at this point we're not asking you to give us anything. We are taking what is our birthright. And what has happened is, just like Aunt Jemima, you know, just like, okay, we get to move to the front of the bus. That's a big thing. I'm not minimizing those advances of the civil rights movement, but that's a notch, and we keep going and we keep going, because what happens is, you know, you feel like civil. It's civil. Okay, I'm not gonna put a water hose on you just because you're black on the sidewalk, but we're gonna have cops that are gonna choke, you know, the life out of you just on GP. You know, so it's kind of like when you know the cards are so stacked against you, it's hard to not accept those small little things that are given to you, but they're not enough. And what they do is kind of silence the overall Revolutionary War. It silences it, and, you know, we move on to the next, and then 50 years later, we're back at it again.
And I add to that real quick. I completely agree. And I would also say, like you said, the part that we do need to emphasize is the civil. And now I feel as though coming into 2020, we're seeing a lot of violence, a lot of more rebellious type protests. Is because I feel as though people are fed up. And people have seen what quote-unquote peaceful protests or things of that nature have accomplished, and they are just not to be the belt opposed to fixing the whole problem. And that's why you see these statues get pulled down, and you're seeing, people beginning to unify, because I feel as though everybody's beginning to understand that this change needs to be, like you said, you have to take it. It cannot be given. And all the things that are given are just things to kind of silence you. We might change the name of this building, we might fix this quota, or make people feel a little bit more inclusive, but we're not giving them full equality. And that is, I agree, that's why that's why the outrage is what it is right now, and how it is what it is in 2020. Definitely comes to full circle.
Okay. Douglas said, let me get myself off mute for our people that are on the webinar. So Douglas said that for the present, it is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. It is not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and ciphering acts as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, educators, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises, common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, and acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men. That was a mouthful in his speech, because I recently saw someone post, I believe it was a white lady did a post that went viral that was saying, so you want black people to leave. Did you know when they leave, they're taking with them the traffic light? And she started naming all of the things similar to Frederick Douglass' speech, naming all of this stuff that people, Africans, had contributed to the building of the United States. And toward the sleeps, he say, then what is goes back to his initial question, what is to the slave is the 4th of July. And when you go back, I don't know, Devon, if you got some of that imagery coming up, when you think about what people say, what does it mean to be an American? We have been brought here, and we do know, I see that we have Miss Byers on the line as well, and we have a great conversation that's going to go on the 4th of July about blacks in Latin in Latin countries. When you know that a majority of the Africans went to South America, and you look at what we have today in America, and you start naming all of the contributions that blacks have done in this country, and you think year after year we still have to prove that we are men. We each year we're proving that we're men. How do we finally get taking the table, I'm sorry. How do we finally get to a point where people of color don't have to prove that we're men? You think about the sign, I am a man. So I'm saying this to say America has kind of decided what does it mean to be a patriot, what does it mean to be American. Colin Kaepernick, what was at this point, I don't know if you do screen share. Colin Kaepernick, for one, who took a knee to protest brutality against people of color, brutality by police, and he took a knee to protest the brutality, but they turned it into treason. They turned it into, he's not American for him to take a knee and play football. Even our president said he doesn't deserve to play football if he, they have created this meaning of what it means to be an American. And I think Frederick Douglass in 1852 told us exactly what it means to be an American. When he started talking about all the contributions that Africans have done, have created for America. So why is it now, 1852, what we're going to say, 1964, so that's almost like some 100 years and 104 years later, you have black men walking around with a sign that say, I am a man. What's that concept?
So I think, and let me unmute myself here. So I think that comes down to this idea. So American society, we are profoundly anti-education. There's a concept that I like to talk about, which is what is the American myth versus American history. And once you learn to distinguish the two, once you find out that they're not the same thing, it's very difficult to be that kind of blind patriot where you're here saying that Colin Kaepernick is an un-American person. When in reality, if there's nothing more American than someone rising up to rebel against something, an oppressive force. I don't believe that there's anything more American than that. That is what we should be celebrating on the 4th of July, not these ideas of you can't question the U.S. government, because if that's what your idea of being American is, I think you fundamentally miss the point of what made this country great in the first place. Not to take his words, but you understand what I mean.
And what's un-American is having black soldiers on the front lines dying to protect your country and come back and get beaten for even wearing their uniforms in public. But this country has, that's why the Black Archives exist, is because of the, perpetual revisionist history that, our country does. The same thing what, Tim said about what really is an American. Well, they use that same, this is what Americans do. This is why we're, suppressing black people. Well, they did the same thing with Christianity. They beat their slaves in the name of Christianity. They perpetuate the Klan in the name of Christianity. So what we are dealing with is a country that from their first justification for stealing this land from the indigenous people that they stole it from, all the way through today, they have revised the history to suit their sensibilities. And we have suffered as a country because of that. When you hear, as they've been talking about what's going on in the United States right now on, national news outlets, they often talk about what happened in Germany in the 1940s. And they talk about the way that country was able to move on was, they don't have Hitler statues around. They were able to, as a country, say, this was messed up. This is a part of our history. We own up to the messed up thing that happened in this country. And, we are acknowledging that and we're moving on from that. But they had a true and hard conversation of acceptance to the good and bad part of your history, but also did not make monument to the things that were the most ugly part of their history. If you really want to talk about what's un-American, the Confederate flag, because the Confederacy was actually fighting so that the United States of America didn't exist.
And that's very true. When you brought that up, I want to talk about that just briefly. When you look up the definition, while I'm talking, somebody look up the definition of treason for me, right? Treason is, I think in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, treason is a death penalty, in the United States. So here you have the Confederacy that fought against, the United States in a form of how, trying to decide on how to establish this country. But yet that is so accepted, yet Black Panthers were murdered brutally in the United States, because they was fighting for the just cause. You have, in one instance, they accept KKK and white supremacists to walk around and express their amendment, Second Amendment. We can openly carry their shotguns, but as soon as someone take Black Rambo for existence, who has all his legal paperwork and he's able to carry a firearm. Philando Castro has all his paperwork, was able to carry. It's a problem. The media show up when it's a problem, when we're practicing that same liberty that's supposed to be created for all men. So why do they celebrate? Why is it that America chooses to celebrate this Confederate history that really was a cruel and a cruel and unjust history, as opposed to celebrating the right side of being on the right side of history? Why do you think that, Kamila?
Well, I would say, and that to piggyback on what Kamila said, and it's just the simple fact of, I think the biggest thing is acknowledgement, and I feel as though in American society we don't acknowledge what we've done, and when I say we, I mean as in American culture, the thing that we've done to African Americans, and the way that we've been set back from fair injustices, slavery, civil rights, you name it, and the lack of acknowledgement is why we still face these issues still. And once we begin to acknowledge it, just like you said, in Hitler, in Germany they don't have Hitler statues, correct? With that being said, that acknowledging that was an issue, and we're not going to glorify this, begins to have everybody come together in a sense of unity. But when you go, you have Robert E. Lee statues in Richmond, Virginia, it does begin to create a bit of a divide. When Robert E. Lee was even joined the Confederacy, So just I feel as though acknowledgement is something that we severely lack, and that's why we are where we are, is the lack of acknowledgement of what has happened.
So real quick, let me unmute myself here. I also, just to piggyback off of what you guys were saying, even Robert E. Lee himself did not want monuments to the Confederacy. So
I'm gonna mute mine. I think it may be coming back from mine. I'm gonna mute mine. Go ahead. Go ahead. Try.
So Robert E. Lee, they had asked him about making a memorial to Gettysburg in 1869. And his response was, I think it wiser not to keep open the stores of war, but to follow the examples of those nations who endeavored to obliterate the marks of civil strife, to commit to oblivion the feelings of their engendered. So even Robert E. Lee, the general that they're celebrating, that many people who support the Confederacy like to support, he didn't want this. He knew that this was going to create more problems in the future.
So, yes, definitely, and that's interesting that you did bring that up, Lewis. And so, okay, I'm sorry, I'm muted on the webinar. So, excuse me. Here we go. So, I'm glad you brought that up in terms of Robert E. Lee not wanting this, but yet, if you allow for current people to tell a story, they would probably swear that, this is our history. This is, from my cold dead hands. You're not going to take my history from me. You're not going to take my statues down. What do you think is the reaction that Frederick Douglass faced after saying such an amazing speech? One of his quotes said, "I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included with the pale of glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us." If you were a fly on the wall, if you were there, what do you think was the response? Now, I'm going to tell you what I told Devon. I was like, I think Frederick Douglass was too educated for them. He mixed his words and strung them together, so they thought that he was giving them honoring them, but he really was dicing them up. But what do you think was the outcome of this speech in terms of how people received it during that time?
I would hope, because I know he delivered a lot of the addresses to abolitionists who would have been sympathetic to his cause. He was very well liked among the abolitionists, but obviously this is not the other part of the country was against this idea of freeing the slaves or not having slavery. Even Republicans, even Abraham Lincoln, he himself said, if he could save the Union without giving slaves without removing slavery, he would have done it. So the response probably wasn't great. Even though he pushed for this, and Abraham Lincoln eventually did come and did sign the Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, even the Emancipation Proclamation it freed slaves in the rebellious states. It did not free slaves in the Union Allied territory. So it's an interesting question that you're raising about how the response was. Abolitionists probably would have been for it, but other congressmen, they were not quite as radical. And we see a lot of that happen. We see that legacy of that come out in the Reconstruction era, post the Civil War.
Okay. Anyone else on that?
I don't know how much thought they put into it. They knew that he was of the, it wasn't like he was giving this speech in front of a bunch of people that was going to cause a revolt or anything. They knew what he was saying was basically falling on deaf ears. They gave this man his moment, and based on how things played out legally, I don't think it had any real impact on it. I don't know what the 1850s version of uppity Negro is, but I'm sure that was being whispered among some people. But I really don't know. What are they thinking now?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they thinking now? Repealing voting rights, or what are they thinking now?
Definitely.
I think it's the out of my cold dead hands, the same thing that Charlton Heston you talked about with the guns.
Yeah.
I think that's their mentality about this country. They don't want to give it up.
Do you think when you think about Frederick Douglass back then, 1852, addressing, and it's almost eerie the fact that he was addressing things that we're still dealing with today. This morning when I was on with FIU, I mentioned that, and I take this statement that was made by the late Reverend Joseph Lowry very serious when he said, if you don't know where you come from, you will never know when they're trying to take you back. And when you think about if that was the emotion, if that was the feeling at the time in regards to this Independence Day, this Declaration of Independence, and we're going to break that down just a little bit in a second, why we're still at this same point, why it's like we constantly are being seen, though, as people of color, we're constantly going back. Instead of starting from a solid foundation, we get here, and then we fall back down to that firm. Here. There's no, okay, we're going to build and stay above the curve. Because the things that he was saying then is still relevant today. It's relevant what is happening. We're doing this over and over again, and we're going to have this discussion on July 15th when we start talking about things in South Florida directly from McDuffie to George Floyd. We're going to talk about those things. Why, again, I ask, we're back at this speech in 1852, and Kamila?
No, because I think this 1852, now 64, we are Americans, but we aren't America. The America that gained its independence was void of any Black people that inhabited this continent. So I feel like everything that the collective was celebrating was not even considering us as a part of that body. And so throughout time, although we have gotten more freedoms afforded to us, and lots of evolution has happened where we can rise to levels that were not accessible to us then, I think it's being an American in a country that is not for you. It was built by you, but not created for you. And that started with us, building the White House and taking all the way to a 44 to get a black one there. 44 presidents lived in a house that black men built. And that, I think that's just the vibe. We live in a country that we are we literally have to have study groups and conversations to convince people why our lives matter.
Awesome.
In a Christian country.
Right? So we ain't going to talk about religion. Go ahead, Devon.
I'm just saying, like, we're going back to the things that people say to make them feel like, oh, I believe that all of us are equal. I believe that, inalienable rights and all that stuff. It looks really good on paper.
Okay.
Yeah,
but in practice, we've not seen that.
I completely agree, and I feel like a big part of that, why Frederick Douglass was so forward thinking as well, is I feel like throughout his entire speech, he was trying to prove that the slave is a man and not the slave is just the slave. He even referred to the slave as the beast of the field within his speech, because he said that they look at us more as animals than human. And I feel as though we still are seeing that in full totality in today's society, where they're looking at us as less than man. That's why we don't need someone's neck, and that's not having a resource for it. And I think that that's due to the fact that they don't view us as equal, or as even the same power of doing so. So that even to go back to what you said, acknowledgement absolutely is so important. And once we acknowledge that we are all the same, that's when we be able to get some type of change. So then, the change is going to be truly genuine, sincere, or long lasting until everyone takes acknowledgement and we all understand that we are equal. And that's what we've been fighting for 20 years now, is equality.
Okay, so we apologize because Atkins, Devon, and I are in close proximity. So you're hearing the echo from his computer and my computer, and he was talking at the same time. Trying to still practice social distancing. Probably wasn't the best idea. We'll fix it by the 15th on how we're going to do it. But let me say this, and I hope that we can get some questions from people that are watching. If you're on Instagram, you're welcome to join us on Zoom, on our Zoom channel. If you go to our website, our Facebook, you can click in and get into the Zoom if you have any questions, or you can post any questions on Instagram here with me and Lewis. So we talk about this freedom, right? And Frederick Douglass being at the Declaration of Independence, he's speaking on his Independence Day, which is this big, huge celebration for America fighting for independence. We all are aware that a black man was the first to die for America's independence, and that's Crispus Attucks. So we're aware that blacks, people of color, have fought in every revolutionary, every war that America has had historically, whether they want to give credit or they don't want to give credit. So you have this day of independence. You have blacks fighting on behalf of the revolution because they thought that America fighting for their independence will some way trickle to the freedom for enslaved people. Now, just to say, when it was drafting the Declaration of Independence, and I kind of say this in jest as well, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, and you go to the first thing that Douglass was saying when he first got there and began to speak, he said, fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? So I'm saying this, and I've said this before. When America drafted the Declaration of Independence, there was one word that they left out that I don't think they were clearly thinking when they founded the country. And I think you sent that over to me, Lewis. I'm gonna see if I have it. I just want to pull up. Yes. When you talk about the first words that they say in American independence, give me 1 second. I want to pull up. Lewis sent me a whole dissertation prior to coming here, and I just want to read it word for word, trying to see where it is. So, don't have it. I wanted to see it word for word. I thought I had it. Well, basically, what I want to talk about is when they said that where justice abided of thee. Where am I at on this? What a slave, no person serves the law in the Declaration of Independence. That's what I'm trying to pull up. Well, but basically, I can't say it word for word because I don't have it. But the Declaration of Independence said that freedom is given to all men. All men are created equal, right? When they start out and they say all men. And sometimes I hate to fathom if our forefathers were smart enough, if they were smart, because you would think they would have put that all white men, you sharing your screen, all white men are created equal. Now, if they would have wrote all white men in the Declaration of Independence, all white men are created equal in this country, we might have a different outcome. It might be a different story. You might have or have had a situation like they had in Haiti, where the Haitians kicked the French out of Haiti. It was a revolution, Toussaint Louverture. It might have been one of those moments here in America if they had written that, because that's in the fabric of the building of America. Now, when they said all men, I think Thomas Jefferson, when they all drafted this, they wasn't thinking clearly. You know, I think they was maybe hooked up on the booze and they were celebrating. We just won our independence, and they just rolled all men. And just the thought of that, when you think about when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, they wrote all men, but they didn't really include all men. And that brings me back to that sign, I am a man. I am a man, you know, because it said that all men. Why is it rooted in a black society that we have to celebrate this America's independence, when the truth is our independence did not come until Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War, and Juneteenth? Why is it as blacks we are so quick to celebrate these victories that are not our victories?
I think that generally speaking, Black people just want to have some reason to be joyous, you know, some reason to take a day off, some reason to kick back and get with your family. A lot of things I don't think that Black people celebrating the 4th of July is on the same level attached to the actual Independence Day as some other people. You know, I think we are just there for the day off, the party, the fireworks, the fun. You know, let's not get too heavy. This is my one day off type of thing. I don't know that you know, if there's that much philosophical thought put into it.
I want to address, I see Nemo that's joined us, and we do want to come in and thank everyone for joining us in this conversation. And Nemo stated that they were thinking clearly because they were thinking Black people were not people and Black men were not men. They were property. They were things so that they wasn't considered people. And yeah, definitely, Nemo, that is definitely a true statement in that.
It was in writing that we were 3/4 of a human.
Yeah. So, how do we, I guess, in wrapping this up, what do you think the outcome of this is when you talk about the 4th of July? What is the 4th to a slave? What is the 4th of July? What is the American Revolution to people of color? We got a country that don't really accept us, but yet when we exercise what we feel is our civil rights, we are ostracized or we're condemned. I got to go back to Colin Kaepernick. You know, I got to go back to someone who was not advocating against the flag, but the rhetoric that they built was, it was about him not being a patriot to the United States, and that tends to press buttons when you talk about the verbiage that is used throughout trying to dispel or trying to encourage or incite people. We're finding that out even as we speak with this election. You know, certain key words that are being used. I was expressing earlier today on my meeting with FIU, it was interesting that how words can kind of change the fabric. You see, I will bring this ad up. It's very fun. I won't say it's funny. I keep saying it's funny, but you got to laugh sometimes to keep from crying. The ad that 45 have out for the election that's labeling his opponent as senile. You know, that he don't have it together. I don't know if anybody's seen that ad. And we all know that both of them can't argue the issue, but that's the wrong person to be calling somebody senile. But the point is being made as, let me get this information out first, because if nobody's there to rebut that information, it all of a sudden become true, you know? And so that rhetoric is happening the same way that they ostracized Colin Kaepernick to make it be more about him going against the American, what the country has done to give him the rights to you know, things that other people don't have. How do we change this in our culture?
I think so with the 4th of July, I think so we just had Juneteenth, and you know, apparently if we go by the same fake news broadcaster, nobody knew about Juneteenth, but I will say that more people know about it now than before. I think that, you know, while we do like to celebrate, we do like to congregate, we do like to have a reason to be joyous, that we do need to be educated. You can still rename it. I mean, look what everybody just did for 45's birthday. They called it Obama Day, and they just started posting Obama pictures everywhere. And I'm not saying it's that, you know, easy, but I'm saying celebrate Juneteenth. This could be the prequel, you know what I mean? Because 1776, we weren't all free. So we really can't, in all good consciousness, say we celebrate Independence Day, because it does not represent independence for all Americans. But use that time to educate people while you gathering around, while you telling those little funny stories. Tell a story about, you know, why this holiday is really BS, you know, to people who are of color. There has, you know, you have to educate. You have to, like, we're talking about it. We're having conversations about it. Somebody else is going to talk about it. And, you know, just move on from the feeling of needing to be accepted by what other people do as their culture. You know, as what, you know, white American culture, they celebrate with the 4th of July and everything. There can be something that we do that honors our place in this country and what we were doing in 1776.
So I want to and just to be, for the sake of time, I know that Instagram is going to shut off very soon, and I want to respect everyone's time. Just acknowledge, well, we have 2 questions. One was in the Zoom panel that asking, will we be celebrating? Will you be celebrating? I don't know if that's directed to everybody. Will you be celebrating the 4th of July? But I think that Ms. Pritchett put it in context as to what it's all about. So I think that question has been answered for people that still will be celebrating. Miami Gardens now stated we are still at the same place because we are not at the table. We have been given a snippet of inclusion, but we are not included. Example, history classes in school teach a snippet of Black history. In order to learn more, you have to take a separate Black history class, separate but equal even today. And definitely just want to acknowledge that comment. And so, you know, I don't have any questions in the Q&A. We felt that we wanted to have this conversation as a Black archivist to talk about Frederick Douglass and his statement. I was just surprised that how relevant and how still this history has repeated itself again. We're coming with the 4th. And then when you think about the awakening of people for the Juneteenth, I heard so much more about Juneteenth that I have ever heard in my entire lifetime of people celebrating Juneteenth and this push for Juneteenth, celebrate Juneteenth. I really wasn't a Juneteenth person, but it made me become more invested in Juneteenth because how engaged everyone was about the history surrounding Juneteenth. Now you're weighing Juneteenth versus the 4th of July, you know, because 65, 53, what it was, the Independence Day wasn't our Independence Day. And although, yes, you know, I like to have some ribs, I like to shoot some fireworks, but for me, it's more entertainment value than, hey, you know, I'm celebrating America's independence. You know, you don't see a lot of that because that independence was not an independence for people of color. So as we continue to press forward towards the mark, I think that we need to have more conversations like this. We need to put a lot more emphasis on what it is to be Black in America, what it means to be Black in America. How do I survive as a Black in America? And more so, if Blacks leave, will there even be an America? You know,
And so along that vein, if you are going to celebrate whatever you're going to be doing, hopefully it's socially distanced for people, but when you buy your things, try to support Black-owned businesses. You know, don't get sucked into the 4th of July sale at the big corporations that don't circulate any money within your community. So perhaps that could be your, you know, way to pay homage to the fact that the first 4th of July was not inclusive of everybody, and you can use that. And then also, Tim, this Saturday, you know, there's programming and activity and things that are going on that reflect on the Black experience that you can participate in as well, like the panel that you're going to be on.
Okay, great. Any closing words, Lewis?
You guys covered it. I just want to go back.
I'm mute on Instagram.
Yeah, no, Instagram is going to cut on us real soon. But I think just what I want to finish on is we were talking about the Declaration of Independence and why was this document so important. And I think that a lot, and I think this is what the beauty was of the Civil Rights Movement, is that they co-opted the words that our forefathers used to create this document. They said, we the people. We the people. At that moment, they didn't consider slaves people. They considered them property. Kamila's talking about the 3/5. They talk about the 3/5. That was done as a way to stop slavery from continuing on into the rest of the country. That's one of those questions that was pushed back by the forefathers. They said, we can't deal with this now. We don't know how to figure it out. We're going to push it back. And that's what led to the Civil War. And when you get to the Civil Rights Movement, you have this document that says, we the people hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It's over. It was using the American language, it was using our own history against us. It weaponized our own history. It made us look. It pointed out the hypocrisy of the American ideal. It pointed out to the rest of the world who we are. And that pressure, I think, spurred on a lot of the change that we have today. It spurred on people like Frederick Douglass, who recognized this hypocrisy and were calling it out as early as 1852. And even then, like, it's not a document without its problems, because even in the Constitution, I don't know if anyone knew this, I didn't know this, in the Constitution, Article 4, Section 2 was a fugitive slave law. They had a fugitive slave law in the Constitution. But this is a document that is celebrated because they're celebrating the 4th of July. I ask questions. There's a lot of our history that we don't know, and there's a reason for that. So,
thank you. So, you know, we're gonna kind of chime out here. You know, I want to thank everybody that has participated on Instagram. I'm just going to tell everybody that's on the web, that's on our Zoom, we are going to thank you. Simply, Erica Bach. See if we got any people that's going to populate on the Instagram now that they see us back on. Let's see. Okay, we got people coming back. We thank you so much. I'm gonna give them time to come back on. Thank you for coming back. Simply, Erica and Rhea, Tamir, thank you so much for coming back.
understanding this, I just wanted everyone to know that are coming back that we're probably going to be moving our platforms from Instagram to Zoom, as well as our Facebook and YouTube. So we're going to be probably moving our platform. Just letting everybody know that's coming back on Instagram. More than likely, we're going to be beginning to move our platform from Instagram to Zoom, where you can join us on Facebook as we broadcast, as well as YouTube. Thank you so much for coming on. We just want to let you know, because Instagram only gives us an hour. So most of our platforms are going to go to settings like this, where we're focused more on the Zoom setting, and we can have multiple people involved. So just keep an eye out for that. Join us on Facebook as well as our YouTube channel. When we do things like this, it's probably going to shift to the Zoom platform, where you can at least join us on Facebook Live as well as Zoom, because it allows us to broadcast just a little bit more. We're going to have more conversations like this. The next conversation will be happening on Saturday. I believe it's at 12 noon, Saturday, 12 noon. That won't be through the Black Archives. It is through my good friend, Vanessa Byers. We'll be talking about blacks in Latin countries. We'll be talking about blacks in Latin countries based on Dr. Henry Louis Gates' book, Blacks in Latin America, as well as we're still doing our programming. And we have a major conversation coming up on July 15th. July 15th. Please join our Zoom on July 15th, because what we're going to be talking about is how the Black Lives Matter movement is being documented in a digital age. The BLM movement being documented in a digital age through the archives. We're going to have our founder, Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields, on the platform, as well as our archivist, assistant archivist, community outreach. Mr. Devon Atkins will be joining us again, who is new on our staff. And of course, we can't have that black voice without Kamila Pritchett. That intellectual black voice will be with us. And we're going to be talking about how the Black Archives documents this history, from McDuffie to George Floyd. We're going to sit down and talk about how the Black Archives began to establish its civil rights collection. Dr. Fields always tells me an amazing story of her life when she was starting the Black Archives, how her and several pioneers, Athley Range, Wilhelmina Jennings, and other people that was on her board, how after the riots in 1982, the Neville Johnson riots that took place, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything the sun touches is old. How those riots led her and her board to begin to do surveys in Miami of the landmarks, black landmarks that still existed. How the Lyric Theater was saved. They rolled through after the devastation to see what survived, and how they began to designate the buildings to get them restored, like the Lyric Theater. Also, she'll talk a story about how she could not go to the city to get it designated historic, because the city did not allow for black landmarks to be designated as historic. They said there's nothing historic in the black communities. So she had to go straight to the National Register of Historic Places. That's the conversation that we're going to have. We're going to move later to talk about those civil rights movements, the riots, the protests that happened with McDuffie, Neville Johnson, and Blade riots. Then we're going to go on and talk about Mike Brown's situation and how a local artist, Sendino Tene, I think I'm saying that correct, Sendino documented the Black Lives Matter movement. We still have asked for a couple of other people to come on that we know currently is documenting this movement, and how archives are preparing itself to tell this story. Because if we don't tell our story, the story will be told in many other different ways. So just wanted to say that to everyone. Definitely join us on the Zoom platform webinar, so that we want you to get engaged. We want to hear your questions that you're asking. We want to get you to participate. You don't have to appear on camera, but if you're on a Zoom platform or you're on a Facebook Live, you can in real time ask a question that we'll address right then and there. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for supporting. I want to thank our panel that was here today talking about what to the American slave is the 4th of July. is your 4th of July. So I want to thank Louis Berthin, who allowed us to hijack his session. I want to thank Kamila Pritchett and Devon for coming in, and my staff. And I just want to thank everybody that is sitting in behind the scene, from Jocelyn Hurtado, our archivist, to our security here at the Black Archives that is keeping us safe while we're stuck in this broadcast room, and everybody that has their hands in what happens to support the Black Archives. We definitely want to give a shout out to our board chair, Mrs. Patricia Jennings-Brainin, for always supporting the staff at the Black Archives repeatedly. Please join us if you can help support us. You can support our cash back by hashtag BALT, $BALT. I think it's BALT South Florida, I believe it is. Definitely.
Cash App is $BAHLT.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We hope to see you next week. We hope to see you on Saturday on Blacks in Latin America, which will be broadcast through Ms. Vanessa Woodard Byers. And we look forward to seeing you again on Monday for Tales from the Magic City. Is it true? Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing all of you at another time. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day. Bye.